Hey guys, Theron Asbury here with Revital Outdoors, bringing you another exciting podcast. Tonight we're going to go to the state of South Carolina, one of my favorite bodies of water of all time, Lake Hartwell. We're going to be interviewing Mr. Joe Anders. He's going to talk to us about the upcoming BFL Savannah River Division tournament coming up on Lake Hartwell in the next few weeks. So a lot of exciting content coming your way. Joe's got a phenomenal career on Lake Hartwell, great history. So very, very good content coming your way. Before we get started, as always, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you get notified when all of our content is dropping. We got a lot of great content still yet to come this year, so be sure to go ahead and subscribe. Also, check us out, Revital Outdoors. That's going to be Facebook and Instagram. That's our social media platforms. And if you've never heard of Revital Outdoors, we're a premium CBD company. We offer premium CBD products to all the outdoor enthusiasts. So if you have back trouble, you have sore shoulders, aches and sorenesses, trouble sleeping at night, any of the ailments that you encounter while being out on the water, our products are designed to help you with that. They're THC-free, made right here in America. So check them out on our website. That's revitaloutdoors.com. You can purchase all of our products there. And also, if you're interested in pro staff opportunities, we do have a great program for that as well. So fill out that application on the pro staff tab. That being said, let's go ahead and bring him in, Mr. Joe Anders from the great state of South Carolina. How you doing this evening, bud?
Doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, well, before we get too involved in the podcast, I can see from behind you, you've got a lot of great history in the bass tournament world. I know you and I talked on Facebook a little bit before we came on the podcast. You've got a great history with Lake Hartwell. So, Lake Hartwell to me is one of those lakes that shines from spring to fall. There's always a good bag being caught out of it. Big magnum spotted bass that live there. Great population of largemouth. What to you makes Hartwell so special?
Man, it's a great fun fishing lake, really. It's hard to win tournaments there. Somebody different wins about every weekend. It is seasonal. You have guys that get on runs and do well for a while. But, man, it's a great fun fishing lake. It's got a lot of fish in it. And, it's just a good fun fishing lake.
Absolutely. Looking at the history of Lake Hartwell, there's been some Bassmaster Classics there. There's been a lot of college championship and regional division events there. There's just overall a really great lake, and it seems like a lot of those tournaments happen in the springtime on Hartwell. So what's your opinion on the springtime bite there, and what do you like to kind of think about when you're going fishing in April?
I think it'll be a little bit different than the Classic. The Classic, it was mostly all pre-spawn. Had a lot of good bags caught in that thing. I think there'll be a lot of upper teens caught in the BFL. There usually is this time of year. A lot of spawning going on out there right now. So spotted bass will definitely play in too, especially if you can get a couple in the 3.5 pound range. Obviously, it doesn't matter what species they are if they're big. So those will play too, and you'll see a lot of big largemouth caught.
Looking at the history of the Classics on Lake Hartwell, it always seems like it's been won on something different. Starting out in 2008, we had Alton Jones throwing a jig out deep. Fast forward to 2000, I believe it was 15. We had Casey Ashley. He won it on an underspin, fishing deep again, in the cuts and probably the staging areas leading into the back of the spawning coves. Then we had Jordan Lee in 2017 throwing a wacky worm. And then just recently, Jason Christie won it throwing spinnerbait in the dirty water. So is that lake just really that versatile? And when we talk about the spawn, how good of a spawn lake is it?
It's a really good spawning lake. It came way up here in the last couple of weeks, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to see the fish. There is areas that are clearer than others, of course, but you have a lot of guys that fish in the back of the creeks, and you have a lot of guys that go to the dam and fish, and you have a lot of guys that fish right around where Green Pond is there, where the tournaments go out of. So, man, it's a good fishing lake. Like I said, there's somebody different that wins there every time. So there's a lot of patterns that play. It's just different seasonal too. It's
okay.
It's a good lake.
So thinking about this upcoming Savannah River BFL tournament, you said there's going to probably a lot of fish caught spawning. What would be kind of your game plan? Are you going to be burning the bank looking at them, or are you going to try to just power fish for the pre-spawners or the fish that are cruising, maybe chasing fry already, or what's kind of your plan of attack?
There may be a little bit of a shad spawn going on. Man, I'm going to go next Friday and try it then and see what happens. It probably change a lot in between now and then. So I'll just have to go and practice and go with what I've got in practice.
Right. One of the cool things about Lake Hartwell that I know a little bit about it, just researching it, you look at lakes around the country, a lot of anglers are doing well, throwing spinnerbaits down the bank, crankbaits. They're always throwing high velocity baits down the bank. it seems to me like with Lake Hartwell, if you're not throwing a swim bait, you're not getting bit.
Yeah, it's a good bait out there for sure, especially pre-spawn. And a lot of times you can see the fish cruising down the bank, and if you throw a swim bait up there, if he doesn't bite it, he's probably not going to bite anything. So it's definitely a good bait. That mag draft, you can't find one in a tackle store around here. So
that's a fact. That's a fact, especially in the springtime.
Yeah.
So with the exception of the anglers that are going to be fishing the spawn and targeting fish on beds, what are some good all-around just styles of fishing that you would anticipate a lot of anglers will be fishing this time on Lake Hartwell for the BFL?
Well, the wacky worm is something, as you saw in the Classic, is something that a lot of guys throw. And there are tournaments won on it. A lot of times it's just a tool, and it'll play in the tournament, and they're doing something else too and catch some on that. But, crankbait's great, spinnerbait's great. And unfortunately, that Alabama rig, I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's killer on Hartwell, and they catch them on that thing. And, with the new generation of anglers that are out there in that forward-facing sonar, I'm sure it'll play in the tournament. And there's a lot of those high school guys and college guys out there that can catch them on Hartwell, and they compete with the guys that's been doing it for 30 years. So, the Alabama rig's probably still going to play factor, especially if there's some wind. But, man, there's so many different ways you can catch them out there, and it's really going to be an interesting tournament for sure.
I'm going to give one more bait drop that I love fishing on Lake Hartwell, and I can't believe I'm going to do it. And I don't know if you fished, I'm sure you have, the old spy bait.
Yeah, oh yeah. Spy bait's really good, especially when it's a spotted bass deal, and they're catching them on those cane piles. It's one of those forward-facing sonar tactics that a lot of guys utilize, and there may be some fish caught in this thing on that. A lot of times those fish will stage up on the cane piles and brush piles offshore, and they'll bite that spy bait. And it's one of the things that guys can get them to bite when they've seen a lot of other lures. So it could definitely play a factor, especially in the fall. It's a really good bait on Hartwell in the fall.
Absolutely. The early spring tournaments we've seen with the Classic and, FLW Tour has been there. Major League Fishing's been there multiple times. I think the last time that Major League Fishing was there, John Cox walked away with it, fishing very, very shallow. But the reason he won that tournament is he was targeting largemouth. The reason Jason Christie walked away with the Classic this year is he was targeting largemouth. How does that change as the spawn progresses?
Well, usually the spawn really only lasts until that, herring bite gets going. Whenever the herring starts spawning, a lot of guys do that. But, the fish will spawn until May out there. I've seen them spawn into June, really. But
really? Wow.
Yeah, usually early May is when it wraps up. And by that time, it's mostly a shad spawn deal anyway, and guys are doing that. But the herring spawn is some of the funnest fishing that you can get out there and do. When they're biting those swim baits and stuff like that, man, it's awesome. It's fun for sure.
That's usually when the old topwater bite picks up a little bit too.
Yeah, topwater bite too. It's some years are better than other on Hartwell for topwater. But last year was actually a good topwater year, and the topwater bite might factor into this BFL a little bit. Just depends on who finds them like that. When you get on up the Seneca River a little bit, the water gets warmer, and guys might catch them all the way up there at the mouth of Kiwi River or something on the topwater.
Okay, I got you. So one last couple thoughts before we let you go. What do you think as a co-angler? When we talk about co-anglers fishing these tournaments and the spawns coming up, a lot of co-anglers dread it. I personally love it because I'm a guy that drags behind the motor. But if for a co-angler to do well in this upcoming BFL on Hartwell, what do you anticipate that they need to bring with them? I know you're going to say a lot of finesse gear, wacky worm, shaky head, and all that. But what would you do in that instance?
Oh, well, obviously it depends on what their boater is doing. But if they're in the dirtier water, you can't beat a spinnerbait. Spinnerbait's key. And that Alabama rig, if you can pick up 2 or 3 on it that are healthy, you can compete with the guys that are catching them on a worm or whatever. And 2 and 3 fish weighs the same thing as 5. If you can catch some on that thing. But yeah, I would say Alabama rig, crankbait. I know Stetson Blaylock caught him good on that crankbait in the Bassmaster Classic, and that's something they're still biting out there. So we'll just have to see what happens. But any kind of worm works good, especially for the small spots, and a jig.
Can't go wrong with a little finesse jig. So, Joe, really appreciate you coming on board. Your accolades speak for themselves behind you, so it's really cool to talk to an angler that's got a lot of great success in South Carolina and Lake Hartwell. definitely going to be rooting for you for this upcoming BFL tournament. Before we let you go, I just want to give you the chance to thank any of your friends, sponsors, anybody that supports your fishing career.
Oh yeah. I want to thank my my family and friends, of course, and Tiger Moving in Greenville. They've always been real supportive of me, and Palmetto Boat Center always takes good care of me with my boat. So my girlfriend Cheyenne, she's very supportive, and my fishing partners Greg and Guff, they put a lot of time into it out there, so we can try to stay on top of them, and that's about it.
Absolutely. So, well, Joe, I really appreciate you coming on board, talking to us with our podcast. Again, for all the listeners out there, we've been talking to Mr. Joe Anders, phenomenal history on Lake Hartwell, giving us a little insight for the upcoming BFL Savannah River Division tournament on Lake Hartwell. Again, before we let everyone go, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you get notified when all of our content is dropping. Make sure you follow Joe Anders as well on Facebook and Instagram. The guy's always on the water. He's always catching them. Some of those fish pictures I'm kind of jealous of myself. So, guys, thank you again for all your support to Revital Outdoors. Thank you again, as always, for all the anglers that have been coming on to our podcast. We're really, really enjoying interviewing all the guys, and I just want to wish all the BFL anglers the best of luck this year. So from all of us at Revital Outdoors, I'm Theron Asbury. Thank you for tuning into this podcast. God bless. Be safe out there. We'll talk to everyone very, very soon.